Our beloved 8% Hard AF Seltzer is now live in over 2,500 locations across the United States. We're now available in Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, North Carolina, Ohio, and Texas. Go to hardafseltzer.com today, click on the store locator, enter your city or zip, and find the nearest location closest to you.
Welcome to Drinking Bros, presented by GhostBed.com.
Yeah, welcome to Drinkin' Bros, kids. Couple times a month, we have some of our favorite business owners on the show to kind of show us and you guys how to start a company, what the trials and tribulations of it are. Today, we've got one of the founders of Beatbox right here. You got the new flavors.
That's right.
Justin Fenchel's on the show. Welcome, dude. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Dude,
excited to share our story.
I know, man. Thanks for coming out. I know you're a super busy guy, and for the audience, I'll get in the background of into the background of why we know you and why you're here.
Yep.
We hired your former COO, Tony.
Former VP of Sales, Tony. That's right.
Yeah, and now he's our COO of Hard AF Seltzer,
Incredible.
which rocked, and he gave you as a reference. You were cool enough, and I was talking to you on the phone like a Saturday for like an hour, and I was like, yo, this guy rocks. And I was like, hey, if you ever want to come on the show, people would love to hear this story.
Yeah.
Because like I was telling you, my college roommates founded Four Loko. You guys are another high ABV college drink that everybody parties with, and it's an overnight success.
Yeah, the 10-year overnight success. That's for everybody, really. I mean, it's amazing how widespread our demographic is. But yeah, no, it's been a wild ride. Excited to get into it.
Do you get pissed off when people say that to you, like, hey, you're an overnight success, and it's been 10, 12 years?
I think, it's funny. I think there are people that just discovered us, at a festival last week that think that this thing just came out, right? Or it came out of nowhere. It doesn't bother me. No, I think oftentimes when you hear stories of companies and you really dig into it, you're like, holy shit, that was 10 years. It's pretty normal how long it takes to actually build the right product, the right machine to sell it, and the community of fans to get it to where it needs to be. But no, it doesn't bother me.
It doesn't?
No.
I would be pissed off about it. I'd be like, bro, I've been banging at this for years.
I get mad when people thank God instead of the surgeon, for example.
Right, for saving their life.
It's like,
where you're like, hey, he did some work too.
I'm not saying don't thank God, but maybe give the guy some credit. Too.
Yeah, the surgeon needs a little
multiple
help.
parties involved.
Yeah, I mean, like, come on now. Let's just
Exactly.
make sure everybody's covered.
Well, let's start from the beginning of this. How did you even come up with this product in general? Because it's in a cardboard box, which is unique.
Yep.
I remember back in the day, because Daddy partied as well. Wine in a box was huge, like Franzia, all
That's
that other
right.
stuff. We would bring it to parties as a joke and kind of carry it over our shoulder.
Yep.
Because it came in that huge square box.
Yeah, 5 liters.
Was that part of this?
Yeah, so absolutely. And you mentioned Chris at Four Loko, who's a great guy, and what a story that brand is. Going back, actually, so I grew up in Southern California. I moved to Austin in 2011, but grew up in SoCal. Graduated from college in the Inland Empire in the 909, and then Brad was a roommate of mine as well as a few other guys, and we were hosting a lot of parties. We were the weekend warriors, right? It's like you graduated college, you're living with your boys, and you go to work hard on the week, and on the weekend you partied like you're back in college. And we would always buy beer, right? Beer was there. We're buying beer. But we were also buying a little bit less beer for alternatives. Products like Mike's Hard Lemonade, Lime-A-Rita, Twisted Tea, Four Loko, which came on the scene, right? Right around that time, I graduated 06, so we're talking like 07, 08, 09. And also, Franzia, the 5-liter box, was always there. I was in a kickball league. You'd see it at the kickball games. You'd see it at the beach. People would buy it. It was affordable. It was convenient. It was fun. You take the bag out. But it was boring, like chillable red and sunset blush, right?
Yeah.
It was like really boring. Even rosé wasn't cool yet.
Worst headaches, by the way, in my life too on this.
Yeah, I know it's just a bulk wine it just they put into the bag, right? But effectively, so we noticed these things, and Brad and I have been best friends since 13. Basically, we were actually at a wine bar in Santa Monica with some of my coworkers, and everyone's tired. It's Friday night, and Brad goes, hey, let's wake up. We need some winergy, right?
Yeah.
We like okay, whatever. We need some winergy. And so we were all like, that's kind of funny. What's winergy? So banked that. I moved to Austin maybe a month or two later. Brad was switching jobs, and so he came out to visit me, and we were just riffing with another guy who ended up being one of our original co-founders, riffing on this concept of winergy and what would it be. And we had names like Call a Cab, Zinfandel, Sauvignon Blanc out. Like we were, just coming up with these names.
Big fan of Sauvignon Blanc out. I'm sure the TTB wouldn't be amped about
yeah,
that.
no, well, that was the thing. So, and it was going to be basically like energy and stuff in a wine bag, almost like Four Loko meets Franzia.
Okay.
So that was kind of this concept. I met Amy, who is one of our co-founders. She was in the business school as well, and this guy Jason, and we said, okay, let's riff on this winergy concept. Now, first thing we were able to do, we were talking about our idea to everybody in the business school, and someone's like, actually one of my friends had, his sister had gone to law school with someone who was an alcohol beverage lawyer. So we call him and we say, okay, we have this idea for winergy. It's going to be caffeinated wine. And he was like, literally in the first 10 minutes, it was like Billy Madison, like we're all dumber for having heard what you just said. Like he's like, everything you said is illegal. You are awarded no points. Yeah,
Because you can't. Caffeine got ripped out of Four Loko.
Caffeine was not allowed. You couldn't add any mix to a wine and call it a varietal. So I didn't know, like if you buy a Cabernet Sauvignon, that has to be pure 100% Cab grapes.
Well, it's got to be at least 70%.
70%, correct.
Yeah.
There's a number there, and if you mix it, dilute it down, you can't call it a Cab. You can call it a red blend. That's why you have the red, the red blend in Sunset.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that was interesting. So we couldn't do that. But then, another product that was on the rise then was Skinny Girl. Now we're in like 2011, right? Into 2012. So there was a product called Skinny Girl Margarita. That was
Skinny Girl the girl from
the Real Housewives. That's
yes,
right.
Bethany Frankel.
That's right. So that product exploded onto the scene. This low-calorie margarita, which really was just marketing. At the end of the day, a shot of alcohol has the calories it has. You can, they had a 30% vodka that they said only has 60 calories. Well, that's because it was 30%, not 40%.
Exactly.
It was just math. But anyway, we were like, let's do a vodka in a box. And like I used to make Crystal Light and vodka, which was a great pregame mix to go out. And
Wow, that's super white trash, bud.
Well, also there's no carbs and sugars in it, so that's why everybody did it at the time.
No, I understand.
It was a great pregame drink. You could put it in the blender, make frozen. It was just easy, right, before going out. So we were like, let's do that, and then really that's when the so now we're still talking in a big box. This was the idea, 5-liter box like a Franzia, only with a vodka mix drink. And then it was about what is the brand going to be. Winergy was obviously dead, and we landed on this feeling of music festival. So like in 2009, I went to my first music festival. It was Bonnaroo in Tennessee. If you had a chance to go, that festival was awesome. I then went to Electric Daisy Carnival, which is a big electronic music show in LA.
Yeah.
EDC in 2009. Amazingly, like a decade later, we sponsored EDC, and seeing it where it was kind of born was just like unbelievable. So if you've ever been to one of those music festivals, I remember being 25, you're working hard, you go there and you walk into this field and there's 100,000 people and you're looking around and like everybody is getting to be authentically who they are, no matter what age you are, who you voted for, what race, sexual identity. You are just coming in, you are meeting new friends, you are celebrating with old friends, and you are having this amazing time. And if the world could be more like that, we would just be in a better place. And that was the basis of this concept was, okay, it's going to be this party version of wine in flavors in a box that looks like an old school boombox.
Yeah.
Centered around that feeling of being at a festival, and nothing starts a party like music in a boombox, and it was meant to share. It was 34 servings, so that was the idea. Now that was like the easier part. Then it's like we have no alcohol experience. How do we actually get this to reality? And so what we did is applied some of the lean startup principles. There's an old book by Eric Ries called Lean Startup, and it's basically how do you create an MVP, a minimum viable product? How do you get a product to your customers in the real world, not behind a computer, as fast as you can and as cheaply as you can to get feedback so you know if this is actually going to be something that will work. And so for us, that meant buying boxes of Franzia, buying cheap bottles of vodka, emptying, and Crystal Light, just like we would make, emptying out the Franzia bags, refilling them with vodka, Crystal Light, and food coloring. And we went on one of those crowdsourcing websites, designcrowd.com, and we had for $250 was the prize we gave for our logo. And we said it's kind of like if Four Loko meets Franzia at Electric Daisy Carnival. If they had a baby at EDC, I think is what we said. And we got amazing submissions for logos. And actually, the guy that designed our first logo was from Toronto, which in 2011 was pretty cool that you were like crowdsourcing this idea.
Yeah.
And we had all these stickers on the box, and we would print them out, and we put them on the boxes with this makeshift thing. And we did like an 8%, a 10%, a 12, a 14, a white box, a black box, a blue, like all these different things. And we went to the parties where we thought the product would do well. So a tailgate, a kickball game, a pool party. And, people would come by and you'd say, okay, go to the one you think looks the coolest. And people would go, okay, well, why did you choose that one? Right?
Yeah.
Because I thought this color scheme was whatever it is. Okay. And then you'd say, okay, go back to the one you think tastes the best. And then after doing that, people would come by like trying to give us $20 bills for something we had made in our bathroom. And you get confidence to be like, holy shit, like this would be big. Like people are like, holy fuck, it's a blue bag. Like, what is that? Because all you had seen was Franzia bags. And we actually trademarked Slap the Bag through that process because...
Oh, you own that?
We own the trademark on Slap the Bag.
No way.
Do your bags still have the handprint on them?
So not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but we ended up switching to the smaller boxes and not making the big boxes anymore. But they did used to have the handprint on them, which we stickered ourselves in the little warehouse. So we have our vodka base. We know it's going to be this blue raspberry flavor. That's what everybody liked. And we knew it was going to be 11%. And we called the alcohol beverage lawyer again. He's like, hell yeah, we've just spent 3-4 months. We've got this dialed in. It's going to be this vodka thing and this. And he's like, guys, you can't put hard liquor in more than 1.75 liters. Nope.
Yeah.
A half gallon is the biggest you'll handle, right? So we're like, Jesus Christ, like how many, like every step of the way, we're like, fuck, can we even do this? But he said, there's some good news. He said, there is this wine that we know, this flavor company that specializes in this wine. It's an orange wine and not like the fancy orange wine that's like all the rage these days, but it's actually from upcycled fermented orange peels. And it's a 21.9% alcohol wine that he sent us samples, and we were like, this tastes just like a flavored vodka almost. It was very neutral. Mm-hmm. And we went to the flavor company and we said, can you recreate this, wine with this vodka tasting drink? And the samples were great. And so that was about $10,000 to partner with this flavor company. At the time, the 5 of us originally put in about $60,000. Mm-hmm. And so then we go, and Amy and I interned for Beatbox as part of the business school at UT. That's why, again, I moved to Austin. And we go to the Texas Alcohol Beverage Commission. Now we're all excited because we've got this concept. We've got a flavor. They found a co-packer who could make it. And we go to them and we say, this is our plan. They're going to make it. They're going to send it to us, and we're going to drive it to stores ourselves, right? And they looked at us like, are you fucking nuts? Like, you need a distributor.
Yeah.
And we said, what's that? Like, that's how little knowledge, we had.
Holy shit.
Didn't even know that you needed an alcohol distributor to sell, right? So they said, if you were a winery, you can self-distribute in Texas. And the winery term was very loosely defined. It could be just a commercial warehouse space. And we weren't like growing grapes, we were just blending, blending on site. So I remember driving home and calling Amy because we were so dejected. We're like, fuck, we can't do this. There's no way. But I called her and I said, fuck it, we're going to make it ourselves. Like, how hard can that be? Well, it was pretty fucking hard, but we figured it out. We actually rented an 800 square foot facility up in North Austin. It looked much more like a scene out of Breaking Bad than a winery.
Yeah.
But we were able to buy like a tank stand, a tank. Actually, we didn't buy the tank stand. We got cinder blocks from Home Depot because it was way cheaper than buying the tank stand. For $12,000, we put together this facility. And we had a stainless steel pump, and we had a tangential inlet thing and a flow meter. I'm like, I was in finance. I don't know any of this stuff, but you just learn it and figure it out. And we had our classmates from business school, like in the operations folks, like a lot of ex-military guys in grad school coming in, like, we're going to optimize this place, like this 800 square foot facility. You're going to produce it here and move it here, and we're going to save you minutes. But we were able to get our first batch off the ground in March 2013 and self-distribute it. So we got it to some stores by, UT and San Marcos, and just driving around. We probably opened up like 30 stores. Mm-hmm. And it started, we would just every weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, sampling, go around. Like, that was all we did. We'd make it, we'd go to class, you'd go to the store, drop it off, get the check, stand there, sample it out, go back to the facility, make more. It was crazy. And And eventually we got our big break. We got picked up by a big distributor. Really credit to the UT alum.
Here in Texas?
Yeah, so we were.
Do you mind if I ask who it is?
Well, back then, yeah, we got picked up by our Republic National Distribution Company.
Okay.
That was our original distributor. And the story there, again, a credit to the Texas alumni. So we were asked to present on behalf of the entrepreneurship program at UT. We had a product that was actually from like idea to in the market. Mm-hmm. And so we talk about entrepreneurship. We talk about how amazing UT is. And this guy comes up to us afterwards. Now we're in like March 2013. And he says, I think I can help you all out. And we look at his business card and we Google it and we're like, holy shit. This guy's name was Alan Dreeben, who was the owner of Republic National Distribution Company. They're based out of Schertz, Texas, just about an hour south of here. And so he invited us down and got with their wine team. And he's like, we're taking this, we're going with it. But they couldn't even send a truck to our manufacturing facility because they couldn't fit into the little warehouse. And there was no lift gate. And they're like, we can't pick up your product. So we're going to wait until you have an actual facility. But now that we had a distributor, which again, we didn't know we needed, but now we have one of the biggest, we were able to get a manufacturer who was actually in Carrollton, Texas.
That's pretty good leadership on behalf of the gentleman that you ran into, though. It's like, hey, we'll work together, but you got to get your fucking shit straight, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not picking it up out of your garage, asshole.
Yeah.
Go buy a real building. You guys are making money. Go buy a real building, and then we'll fucking
go figure out how to actually make it. And they were
but
like,
that's good though, because some dudes would just be like, fuck, these guys are nobody.
They're
Fuck
not ready
off,
for it,
right?
yeah.
Especially in the distributor world, it is difficult to deal with these folks.
Very difficult.
There's a number of times where this guy Alan, who actually sadly passed away earlier this year, was such a freaking awesome guy, because there's a lot of not awesome people in the alcohol space, and this guy was all class. Like from later on when we needed to switch distributors out of which I'll get into, like the switch from the wine and spirits network to the beer networks, he was usually that can be a total nightmare. And he just like let us out, no franchise, which means you're basically contracted for life. Like he was like, you absolutely need to switch. I'm the president of the Beatbox fan club, and you will get out of these deals, which was amazing. He was incredible. And you need people like that.
Yeah.
When you're just starting, like, you work your ass off, and like to quote Rob Dyrdek, he's not the first to say it, you make your own luck. But like those moments, you need them. When you're grinding, and then you get that break that like, okay, we can keep going because now we have a distributor. Like that's a big deal. Yeah. And then we got into our first grocery chain. And so now like we're in January 2014. We've got a couple flavors. We got a manufacturer. We've got the distributor. And we go, okay, like this is no longer a class project that we're self-funding here. Like let's go raise some money. So we start to talk to people in town, not getting too much, but there's interested folks. And then, of course, we applied for season 6 of Shark Tank. And ended up
Mark Cuban gave you guys $1 million?
Yeah. So we filmed in June 2014, and it aired October 2014.
Boom, there you guys are,
There we are.
there
Look
on
at us.
screen. Look at you guys.
Yeah, 10 freaking years ago. Unbelievable.
And forgive me, because so me and my wife are huge Shark Tank fans. I did not see this episode behind the scenes, because we've had some guys from Shark Tank on the show before. What actually happened behind the scenes? Like, how long is the presentation?
Yeah.
I heard it's close to like 4 hours.
The longest one is 4 hours.
Okay.
There is no time limit. So basically, there was 80,000 companies that applied. They air 108. So it's like crazy, right? So of the 80,000 that applied, they cut it down to about 800, and then you make it to the next round. And then of the 800, you get assigned 2 producers, and there's like 30-something producers on Shark Tank. So every week you meet with the producers, and you're like crafting your pitch, and they're asking you updates on the business. But every week they're like, we'll let you know if we're going to talk next week. And they're cutting all along the way. And so that started in like February of 2014. So we're like trying to manage this brand new distributor, this brand new manufacturer, and watching and try and do tastings and everything, and watch every single episode, read all the Sharks books. I mean, we had business school professors grill us. So like every week we check in, and we're like, by the time we got to April, May, we're like, I think that we're going to get on here, because the producers were very excited. They actually can't have beer or spirits on Shark Tank, but wine you could have.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
And we were like this millennial fun party wine that kind of was like drawing a younger audience into Shark Tank, but also was wine. So it was interesting. But
well, the obvious follow-up here was Cuban helpful?
Yeah, no, I mean, so he's been super helpful. His brother's still on our board of directors, but just to finish up the behind the scenes of they fly you out, they flew us out on a Friday. You pitch to all the producers, and they film the whole season in 2 weeks. So you're there with like, I don't know, 50, 60 other companies, and you can't say a fucking word to them. I mean, you have to just be, what's the weather? You know, it's like you've signed your life away for this thing. And then you do a dress rehearsal Friday with the producers, and then Sunday they call you and say you're going to film. You might get cut then. They're still cutting people. I mean, if they don't think you're going to make good TV or you know, whatever it is. So Sunday they call us. They said you're going to film Monday. We get to our like little trailer in the Sony Pictures lot at I think like 8 a.m. and you're nervous as hell. And then we didn't film till noon. So for 4 hours, you're just, the three of us are in there just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, but we were super prepared. Then, of course, at noon, they're like, we got to go. You got to, who's making the drinks? And they just rush you. And you go in there, and there's no sharks on the side. There's no music playing, right? It's a studio.
Yeah.
And you walk out there, and they tell you where your mark is, and you get there. And then the most awkward moment is there's a full minute before you start talking where they're getting the camera angles and everything.
Sure.
So you're just, you feel like you're in an alternate universe because you've watched from the outside every episode. And now you're in it looking at them, and it's very weird and uncomfortable because you're just staring, and Mr. Wonderful's got his hands like this, and then they go begin, and then there's no cuts, there's no edits, there's like, you just go.
Yeah.
You do the only thing that's scripted is your kind of first 90-second pitch. I don't know exactly how long we were in there. It was probably about 45 minutes to an hour.
Okay.
It's just hard to know. We were just like so.
Yeah, I mean,
you're like holy shit. But what was cool is that they all were interested, and they all made offers. Barbara started. And then Mr. Wonderful made an offer, and then Lori and Robert were about to, but Mark was pretty quiet the whole time, which we found out later meant that he was like really into it because he's worth so much more than all. If he wants something, he can get it.
Sure.
And we wanted Mark. So Robert goes to Mark like, "What are you thinking?" And he's like, "Guys, you don't sell wine, you sell fun." And like, that's it, right? And we were like, yes, you get it. Like, that's what we're about here. It's not about the wine, it's the fun. And then the conversation kind of turned, and we asked for $200,000 for 10% of the business. Barbara offered $400,000 for 20, Kevin $200 for 20, Laura and Robert are drawing. Mark says, look, I think you need more money. I'll give you $600K, but I want a third of the business, and you got to tell me what you want to do, right? And so we had a little bit of conversation, and then it was like, Mark, like, we didn't think we were going to give up, a third of the, he's like, well, then just tell me what you want. And we countered, I said, well, would you do it? No, from no position of strength, like, just like, would you do $1 million for a third? And he looks down and he's like, yeah. And that was it.
No shit.
Yeah, it was wild. Absolutely insane. Like, it was so surreal. And then you walk out of there, and they actually send out like a psychologist to talk to you in your trailer. Because like a lot of people that they come in and they have their idea that they've wanted to do their whole life, and Mr. Wonderful
shattered.
Yeah, Mr. Wonderful's like, you should be killed outside of a barn, and they go and then they go to their trailer and they're like, I hate everything, and so they came out and we were like dancing in there, and actually got kicked out of a karaoke bar on Monday night for popping champagne. It was the Gaslight, which is this little dive bar in Santa Monica.
Yeah, I know the Gaslight very well.
Love that place. Opens at 6 a.m.
Yep.
But yeah, it was a great time. It was super cool, so surreal. And then it took us like 3 months to close it because it's just a handshake agreement. Mm-hmm. And then they do all the diligence, and we closed it in September, aired in October, and then it was like, holy shit, 7 million people just see you on national TV. We were in Bentonville, Arkansas a month later with the Walmart team. Who's like, how fast can we put you in 2,000 Walmarts? We're like, we're in 100 accounts in Texas. We don't have any permits even to sell anywhere.
Do you
else.
even have enough product at that point?
Well, that was like, it was crazy because like it took 2 to 3 months to close it. We were out of money, but we're just like pushing things. And we had other people that were ready at this. Of course, they're like, I'll give you money now. And Mark had some bars he was invested in, and we had to structure things a certain way because of the 3-tier law, which is a whole other thing. And finally, we said to Mark, like, Mark, if we don't do this, and his lawyers are gatekeepers, and we said, Mark, if we don't do this now, like, we got to move on. And we had the best TABC lawyer in the whole state write this whole thing about why it's going to be okay and all that. And we wrote, and he said with his lawyers on, do the deal. And that was when we got the money to produce, because we were like, we have to produce. We don't know when we're going to air.
Yeah.
They give you 2 weeks notice.
Holy shit.
For when you're going to air. So like, we needed the money to make product for when it aired, although we're not as much of like a, the Squatty Potty is a direct-to-consumer QVC type product.
Yeah.
For us, we have to sell through retail. We could get some wine permits, sell online, but yeah, it aired. It was nuts. And then RNDC, our distributor in Texas, was like so excited and wanted to go big with us. And so we're just like, there's 3 of us and our intern Spencer, and we're like, fuck it, let's go launch this thing in Walmart. And like we opened up 30 states. We're traveling all over the country trying to get this thing off the ground. And it's a $20 box, $25 box. It's confusing as hell. It looks like a boom box. Like we think we've made it, but then you get, you're trying to manage some of the biggest distributors in the world.
Yeah.
And it was like, it would work in pockets where it would do well, not in, but Walmart had just failed. And once it failed at Walmart and the distributors were like, if Shark Tank and Walmart doesn't work, then this thing's dead.
Yeah.
Like it's never going to work. So we just couldn't get any more attention from them. But during that time, we had enough like traction where we're like, okay, there's something here. We just need to figure out a different tweak to the business model, which is where the single serve kind of came in.
So these smaller boxes are the ones that I'm holding up here to camera.
Yeah.
That's where these came in. Gotcha. Because so Bob, our producer back there, worked for TFM.
Oh, yeah.
I wrote your promotional articles on TFM.
I totally recognized you. Yeah. I was like, that guy looks super familiar.
Yeah.
It's probably because he's the Rainy Street Ripper.
Yeah, he's the one
that's
murdering
where it was,
people.
yeah.
And
Or-
that's sound awesome.
Or he's the one. He's going to be a victim.
one of the two.
One of the
Because
two,
they're
yeah.
killing bros like Bob down there.
Yeah. More
So-
likely B than A. Yeah. I remember I was so pissed. You guys invited me to, you were having like a South by party, and Cuban was, I guess, there or whatever. I was out of town. They're like, but if you want to stop by, you totally can. And I was like, fuck!
Yeah. It was cool because during South by, he's always in town, and he would just like pop it. He's like, what bar do you guys want to get into? And we were like, the Blind Pig on 6th Street would be awesome. And he's like, cool. And he pops in, and we're selling boxes behind the bar, like full boxes for like $80.
With him?
Yes,
That's
with him.
awesome.
It was incredible.
That's
he
great.
did a tasting with us at Indiana University, where he went to school at Big Red Liquors. He goes back every year he played rugby there, so he goes back for the rugby reunions, and like again stood there in the store for 3 hours, signed every single box. I mean, there was a line. He's a legend at IU. Line around the corner, and we ended up having a meeting with him in the little like janitor's closet in this liquor store afterwards, just to talk about an inventory loan, which he ended up giving us. But we're like, Mark, like everyone was like coming up to you and they're talking to you and and we're like, how do you like do that? And he's like, guys, this is a blast. He's like, if I'm not having fun, I don't do something. And so he just loved it. And then we went out to Kilroy Sports that night and had a great time. And like, man, those moments are just like, you're like, what is my life right now? Now the business was failing. It was like we couldn't scale it.
But you had a cool night.
Those were really cool times. Yeah, no, lots of really cool nights along the way. And then, so we need something smaller. We need something that people cannot spend. Like, that's 1.3 gallons in the big box. That's a lot. And if you don't like one, that's not that many occasions where you need that much. Maybe a huge party, or you're floating the river or something like that. But it's not for mass market occasions. And so we were like, okay.
It's also not shareable, which is like the thing now. I think it's become deeply rooted in human psychology now after social media for the last 20 years to not engage in something if it's going to be alone, right? Like the things that do the best right now in digital marketing are things that you can hand to another person.
Yeah,
right?
it's the community.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. And we went from the television set with 3 channels a couple times a week with the family to individual servings, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah. Right here, where you're
It's the
like, okay,
phone,
cool. Yeah.
It's a phone. It's a laptop. It's streaming versus scheduled programming. It's single serve alcohol. It's all that stuff.
Yeah. So we looked at everything. We looked at cans and pouches and bottles, and we're like, no, like we're Beatbox. It's about the portability, the eco-friendly, the fun, the resealability. And so we landed on the Tetra Pak, which is the name of the package that is.
Yeah, because the first time I had this was in school, with like chocolate milk.
Yeah. No, muscle milk.
Well, but if you grew up in Canada, you would have had milk like that your entire life. Like
really?
Regular milk, yeah.
Did you grow up in Canada?
No,
we have friends. Friends are.
Yeah.
My wife's from Toronto, so we love Canada. But yeah, so it was popular, but in very different coconut water. Muscle milk.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just kind of emerging in wine. You would see, again, just like we saw with Franzia, there was Black Box and Boda Box. They had the 3-liter boxes.
That's right.
And they were doing single-serve Tetra Pak wine. But again, it was Cabernet, Chardonnay. It was boring red and white. And we said, well, okay, why can't we do the same thing we tried to do in the big box and kind of did do in the small one? And so we ended up, and thankfully, because of, Cuban $1 million doesn't get you very far in the alcohol industry.
No shit.
Like it was for all of our inventory, finally paying ourselves $60,000 a year.
Yeah.
And like, all of our marketing that Anheuser-Busch will spend $1 million, on one ad, Facebook ad. So we had to be, we needed more money very quickly. Mm-hmm. But Mark, from coming down to Austin and like a lot of people we had met when we were traveling the country that were like, oh, how do I get involved? I want to invest. Like people always ask like, how do you raise money? It's like, there's no silver bullet. You just got to be out there.
I know, dude. Some of the people I've met have a rich uncle who wrote a check for $5 million.
Yeah.
Then there's others like us who, we're friends with pores, so we go to wefunder.com. Like,
we did that too. Yeah, no, but like that was kind of it. We went to Tallahassee, and there's a guy there who was like hustling, and had his dad wanted to invest, and then his dad had a neighbor who they've become our biggest investors. So like, you just got to be out there, living your dream, selling your dream, and you never know. You might be doing a tasting in a store, and someone says, "Oh, I do investments. How do I get involved?" Right? You never know.
Never know. And something similar happened to us with the Miami Marlins deal when we first launched for Hard AF Seltzer. It was we got it in the stadium there because we wanted it to be visible and people to see it. And the president of Total Wine happened to take his kid to the second game. Dan was throwing out the first pitch that night, and they saw Hard AF Seltzer all over the stadium and the thing. And this was something we were trying to get into, and he called on Monday morning, and he goes, "Hey, sorry, I didn't know you guys were this big of a brand." He goes, "I'll put you in the chain nationally." He goes, "We love it." And I was like, "Oh, well, shit, great. It worked."
Yeah, but again, that's like it's the hustle and the hard work that puts you in those situations. And then, are you ready to capitalize when that moment comes?
Yeah,
and that's kind of how it goes. There is no silver bullet solution to growing and raising money. People say like, how? And so when we launched it, we raised the Series A about a year and a half, 2 years after Shark Tank, starting with convertible.
And what
notes.
year is that?
That's like 2017.
Okay.
So we started in 2016 raising on a note, convertible note, then finalized the A, which allowed us to hire our first VP of sales, who actually came from the wine and spirits world, because that's all we knew. We were with wine and spirits distributors. And then the single serve launched in January 2017, and it starts to really do well in Austin, especially in the convenience store channel. But it wasn't being restocked or merchandised. And I called the sales rep for Republic National, who covered, the independents, and I'm like, dude, like, why aren't we getting restocks here? He's like,
we're selling out.
They're selling out, right? It's doing okay. And he's like, Justin, I cover 300 of these 1,000 Austin independent stores myself. Like, I barely get to 30 of them. Like, I can only focus. And then this, you realize that. So wine and spirits distributors sell Casamigos and Tito's and high-end wines and whiskeys, and they're used to $400, $500 cases and no shelf life issues. And they sell to the Total Wines and the Specs, but they're not built for 7-Eleven and Circle K, because they're just not selling any spirits there in most of the country, and they're not selling that much wine. So we ended up meeting a guy who was the VP of sales at Deep Eddy Vodka, which was another great
Love Deep Eddy. They're right up the street.
Yeah. Dripping Springs. They're great. Amazing story as well.
That's still my favorite vodka to this day.
When that grapefruit vodka hit Austin, I think it was in 2013, and it just took the city by storm. You'd be at like a bar, and like people are just doing shots of Deep Eddy grapefruit, and you're like, this is delicious. Like, it is so good.
I was shooting a movie in 2011, and I had it at a bar downtown, and I was like, I think it was the lemon version of it.
Yeah, the ivory flavor was so good.
Everything was so good, and it's still to this day my favorite vodka.
And they exited for several $100 million to Heaven Hill.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah, in 2015. Yeah. So,
wow.
So one of the guys that was the VP of sales there ended up doing some consulting, and we got introduced to him through Clayton, who was the founder of Deep Eddy, and he said, and John Potts was the guy, the VP of sales at Deep Eddy, and he said he worked at RNDC for 15 years, so he knew all the high ups, and he said, guys, like, they love you three, but they will never service this brand like you need them to. So I want to invest, but you're going to have to switch to the beer networks. And again, we were like, what's the beer network? Like, we were horse blinders on, just running. Like, we didn't have time to stop and think, is there a better path? It was just like RNDC in Texas, Shark Tank, national distribution, Walmart.
We made it.
Oh, wait, we didn't make it. We're out of business. We can't pay ourselves. Make the single serve, raise some money. And then we get this investment from John, and that's when we went down. So we made the first switch. We hired a VP of sales. This was the guy before Tony, a guy, Jeff Chasner, who worked for Sweetwater and Miller Coors, and he lived in Georgia. We get him on in middle of 2017, and we make the switch. And Georgia was our first state in early 2018 with the single serve with a beer network. And we sold more cases in the first like 3-4 months of the year in Georgia than we did in the entire year almost with 30 states with RNDC, with the big box. So it was like very clear the future was single serve Beatbox through the beer networks. And that's when we went down to Shirts to talk to Alan and say, hey, like, we've got to make this switch, you know, which was a big deal to unwind 30 distribution deals across 30 states. Some of them were lifetime deals. And that's when he said, I'm the president of the Beatbox fan club. And he let us out of all those deals. And we kind of just relaunched the brand starting in 2018 through the beer networks and have at least doubled sales every year since then.
Holy shit. Yeah, it's an amazing success story. And when we were looking for people, once we got our first, big round of funding, Tony had popped up. And I said, well, hey, shit, I see this everywhere. I knew about how much money you guys were making and all the other stuff. And I was like, this could be the guy for us. And, I'm sure Tony will be watching this, but the thing is, when you start interviewing guys like this and you finally get the big check and you can really afford guys like this, problem is a lot of them are suits. They want to sit in an office. They don't want to get their hands dirty and everything else. I'd interviewed 6 or 7 people. And then Tony was like, hey, dude, I listened to the show. I'm going to be in Champaign, Illinois, where you guys are launching the University of Illinois and you're in all the stadiums and stuff. He goes, how about we meet for lunch? And I was like, perfect. We'll be there. We got a live show at 4. We'll see you at noon.
Yeah.
He picked a dive bar, which even better, knowing who we are. And it was like, all right.
Very much a dive bar guy, Tony.
Which is great.
Yep, me too.
But that's what we need to be in. So, like, that was a part of it, too, where it's like, great, we need to be in these bars. We need to be on campus. Because it was on campus, too.
Yep.
And then the other thing is, shows up, T-shirt, shorts, not in a suit or anything else. So I knew, as soon as I asked him, I go, I bet you're here meeting distributors and, shopping the product. And he goes, yeah, I am. And I go, that's the way it should be.
Yep.
So that I knew that was the guy from that. But
no, I think people fall into the myth of just like the name on the resume, right? And you see like a big company and big experience. And sometimes those folks are used to a lot of resources. Because when you get into the startup world, you're like, listen, we don't have access to all the data that you had access to. We don't have, now we're getting there, right? But like when you're coming in, and so can you, even Chasner, the first VP who worked at the distributor that we ended up going with for 10 years, was like, this is an easy money. I'm going to call them. And their first answer was, no, we're not interested. Yeah. And it's like, you've known this guy your whole life, right? And it was like shocking because when you work for Miller Lite, it's like it's just how much are you going to take, not yes or no.
Yeah.
So it's a totally different mindset, and you have to think creatively. You have to think differently. You're not going to outspend the big companies. You have to outwork them and outsmart them, and you have to be a jet ski in a world of cruise ships and navigate quickly and be able to pivot. I remember in 2019 we get our first chain account because we were all independents. Like no chain would take us, and in 2019 we get 50 store test and a Circle K in the Carolinas. And we get an email up from one of the store managers who said, hey, I moved this little 5K shipper of Beatbox to close to the register and I sold it out in 72 hours. So we get that email and we're like, this is the new sales model.
Yeah.
Get the shipper and put it by the register. And like, we went all in on that. And in fact, like we just were like, this is our KPI, key performance measure. It's like, get it. How many racks do we have by the registers? And you just like can be super focused on that. It would take a larger company 2 years of meetings and to get to that point. So it's you have to be lean in. And yeah, Tony was great. He started with us, I think September 2020, and was with us for a couple years. So
yeah, and then bigger jobs come up and all that other stuff.
No, and Phil, our EVP of sales, is a rock star, and we've got a great team. We 4 or 5 years ago, I think we were like 12 employees. Now we're 210. We have 300 amazing distributors across the country, all 50 states, and hit 100 million in revenue last year, tracking to 175 this year, making money now. So it's been everybody that's been a part of this journey, we are grateful for, because man, it's been some of the darkest days, some of the best days. But I will tell you, there is nothing more fun than building your own company. That's your baby. That like everything that happens is from decisions that you have to make, and it's live or die. And man, you just have to appreciate and enjoy all of it because it is all consuming. And I don't think people always realize that about entrepreneurship. They're like, I hate my job. It seems so cool to just have your own company, and I'm just going to go do that instead. Not realizing that like that is not how it works.
No, not at all. And even when I walked in today, he goes, "Hey, you should go to my doctor. You look like shit." And I was like, "Hey, are you serious, dude?" And he goes, "No, I'm fucking with you." But there's like 3 other people this week that are like, "Hey, man, it looks like you lost weight." And I was like, "No, man, I've been so fucking stressed out that like I think the only thing I ate last night, because we have the podcast obviously, and then the Hard AF Seltzer.
It was ass, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't. It was. I wish it was.
Don't lie to me.
I wish it was. Taking my kid to football, and it was he left an extra 3 nuggets and 4 waffle fries in the bag from Chick-fil-A, and then I had to go to soccer practice for the other child afterwards, and I realized, well, that was all I ate. Once I went to bed that night, and I was like, holy shit, dude. You're exhausted, and then you're just hoping to get to the other side. And with you, now that you're on the other side, the last thing of that phone call, I go, hey, dude, are you going to sell this? Because that's usually everybody's goal, ourselves included, and I had told you that. But you said you're having so much fun with the brand, and you don't want anybody else to ruin it. If you could talk about that side of it, because Dan and I know some people, too, who wish they would have held on to their company.
Yeah, I think it's the trickiest part. Like, so just taking a step back, in the alcohol kind of startup game, the classic model is you create the company, you break through some of the barriers, you get distribution, you get to 10, 20 million in revenue, and someone says, I can take that to 100 million, and you flip it, right? Mm-hmm. And you make, it's a great outcome, and you can do that. And that's what we thought would happen. Like, when we started, we're like, this thing, and we always said, like, from day one, we're like, we want to be the Red Bull of the alcohol industry, this lifestyle product that's not just in the US, all over the world. So we felt we had huge dreams for it, but you're like, if someone wants to write us a big check, like, you're going to take it. And especially after Shark Tank, you have investors, and then you get into the days of 2015, 16, 17, where it was like sleepless nights, not paying ourselves for months, worried about funding, banging our head against the wall. We just went on national TV, got one of the biggest checks in Shark Tank history. Are we going to be that company that goes out of business after that?
And here's an update.
Yeah. Here's the Shark. Yeah, Shark Tank. They're back to their jobs. they are putting on the fast food hat. So yeah, we didn't want that, but we would have we were like, please, someone take this off our hands. Like, we just want to sell. But then, like, sparks hit, and you go, and now, we are almost at the dollar size we're at. You get to a point where you're out of the traditional kind of world of where the acquirers want to be.
Yeah, is it like $1 billion then at that point? Just based on,
I mean, Buzzballs, if you know that product.
I do.
They're another incredible story. A high school teacher out of Dallas, Texas, Marilee, in 2009 was like bringing little makeshift cocktails in tennis ball holders for her teacher friends, and works with someone to patent the technology. When I moved to Austin, I see these Buzzballs in the convenience store. I'm like, this is wild. It's so cool.
Yeah.
And they, over the last 15 years, grew to close to 300 million in revenue, and they're tracking to that this year. And they sold to Sazerac earlier this year for $1 billion plus.
Holy shit!
That to be honest, it depends on the type of booze you're selling, but stuff with solid distribution networks can go as high as a 10.5 multiplier on EBITDA, right? Mm-hmm. And the booze industry is kind of unique in that regard.
Well, Deep Eddy went back in the day for 10 times revenue.
Yeah,
but those multiples have come down.
Yeah,
Spirits can go if the spirit.
Yeah, 6.5 is about average though for like a strong, like Aviation when they sold.
Aviation Gin.
They sold it at that mark at a 6.5.
Yeah.
I don't know about Casamigos, but it was $3.5 billion. So I'm guessing it was.
Casamigos they were doing like 40 or 50 million and sold for $1 billion with 600 million plus the earnout. So it was like 20 times really. It was like, So there are some huge ones. Not to say that we would get that, but you're talking in that range potentially.
You have to be, right? Because when we hung up the phone, I was working out the math, and I was like, shit, man, that'd be over $1 billion if
potentially, right? So that's wild, right? But who's the right partner? And then you look at guys like Jim Cook at Boston Beer, who's been there. He's I think he's in his 70s, and he is loving it. He's still running the company.
Yeah.
And Anthony Von Mandel, who created Mark Anthony brands, who launched Mike's Hard Lemonade, and then Cayman Jack, and then White Claw. He's still there, loving it. You look at the Monster co-founders, Rodney and Hilton.
Oh, they're still there.
They're still there. I mean, Rodney just announced
punching holes through drywall. Dude.
Yeah. And I saw them talk, earlier this year, and it was like so inspiring, these guys that built this thing for 30 plus years. So you look at those stories and you're like, why can't that be us? But we also have, a couple hundred investors that have been in it for a long time.
Yep.
They want to know when they're getting their money back. So we're you're always kind of raising money and recapping and looking at things all the time. And so we are kind of looking, is there an opportunity to find a new partner that kind of sees the 5-year vision? Because we're still in the way it's defined is like ACV, right? How many stores are you in and how much distribution do you have? We're at a 32, right? And you look at like a Mike's Hard Lemonade is going to be up in the 90s. So we have a lot of runway. So when you talk about like the culture we have, the people we have, how much fun we're having, combined with all the white space we see ahead of us, you say, okay, maybe we run this thing for another few years and get to 400, 500 million in revenue with 20% EBITDA margins. And now this can do a lot of things. And then you could talk about international, you talk about a second brand or a third brand or so many different options. So we're just evaluating it all. Like, I think you got to have optionality. You got to be open when timing is everything.
Yep.
You don't want to miss the window where you're in this hyper growth and then it slows and now the multiple comes down. So you got to look at all of it. But we're just very grateful to be where we're at. And then we can kind of control our own destiny in a certain way. We don't have to do anything we don't want to do, which was not the case. I mean, you'll take money from anybody.
Oh yeah.
You're like, if you got a check, we're listening. So yeah, no, we're super grateful. It's been one of the most craziest, amazing rides that and so fulfilling and full circle to, like, again, when I can remember myself at 25 standing at Electric Daisy Carnival, having the most amazing time of my life, and then a decade later to be back there flying in on a helicopter with Live Nation and watching so many people drinking this product where it was born and being like, holy shit,
Yeah.
this is fucking cool. This is what it was about. And be able to do that at scale and is just like, wow, what a dream.
That's the way I felt at University of Illinois a couple weeks ago when we were there, and just seeing kids and everybody drink it that we didn't know. Like just people that you don't know.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's like, all right, friends, and we leave the doors open to the studio every single week so everybody can come in and watch live shows. This is one of our investors over here and a listener from WeFunder.
Nice.
And we're like, hey, because we don't want to let anybody down, but you're like, come on in, drink, rage, do everything. But when it's strangers that you don't know drinking your product and enjoying it and having fun, it's pretty rad.
That was one of those. If you go back to like 2013, every box that we sold was us hand selling it, right? It was like we were in the store selling it. And I remember the first time driving around near the University of Texas campus, and I see someone walking out of a store with a box. I'm like, okay, like it wasn't us selling it.
It could work.
Hey, someone paid $20 and we didn't make them at a tasting. That was really cool. Yeah, those moments, you just got to appreciate every part of it along the way, right? You have to.
It's hard. I'll tell you that, because there's some times where you're just like, oh my God, dude, lawyers and things, and we'll get into that now because I'm sure people have tried to sue for Beatbox, the name Beatbox, or things like that. Like, how did you get the trademark?
Actually, the very first name we wanted to call it was Boombox Beverages, and we go on. We paid, I think, $200 for LegalZoom to get them to like try and file the trademark in the classification for wine. And one of their lawyers calls us back and says, "Hey, I think you're going to have a problem with this because there's already a Boombox trademarked in your classification for wine." And we're like, "What?" And we look it up, and it's this winery out of Sonoma County, Gunlock Bundschuh Wineries. And I call the winery. I'm like, "Can I talk to Jeff Bundschuh?" And they're like, "What? No, I can't get a hold of him." But I saw in 2013 he was coming to Austin for a South by Southwest event they were hosting to launch not Boombox, but like a bunch of other wines. And he was a USC music grad. He was like big alternative rock guy. He had like an alternative rock band playing. It was at Fleming's Steakhouse. So I go there. And, just kind of slow play it. I'm like, I casually work my way into the conversation, and I shake this guy's. It's a 6th generation winery. They do like Rieslings and Gewürztraminers. They're like really nice winery. And he wanted to enter the next generation with this like lineup of rock star wines. He had like Raucous, Bacchus, and Bright Light. And so I go up there and I'm like, hey, I'm a student at UT, and we got this idea for, we were part of this class project and blah, blah, blah. And we had to trademark it as part of the class project. And we saw you had the trademark, and it sounds like an awesome idea. What are your plans with it? And he's like, oh, we thought it was a cool name. So we trademarked it, but we don't really have any plans for it. And so I pull out my phone. I'm like, well, here's like our prototype. Like, this is what we were thinking. And he's like, oh, that's really cool. Like, he gets my number. I call him, leave a voicemail. He finally calls me back. He leaves a voicemail. He's like, because in my head, I'm like, we don't know anything about wine and distribution. Like, we know the marketing side. Maybe we can partner. I don't know. You're trying to think of every which way you can get this thing to market.
Sure.
And so he called and left this long voice. And be like, yeah, we talked to our board and we think it's cool, but we have no interest in giving up the name and no interest in partnering. So I wish you the best. That was it. So I was pretty bummed out. And it's like you I don't know. You hyper focused on so many things when you're just starting. You're like, it has to be called this, or we can't do it.
Oh yeah.
Like you're just like, it's boombox. It's in a boombox. And I was taking law for entrepreneurs at the business school, and I talked to my professor, and I was like, man, I'm so fucking bummed. We can't call it boombox. We're done. We can't make. He's like, Justin, just change the name. You're like, oh my god, what a light bulb moment. Like, I guess we should change the name. And so we tested out a bunch of different things and landed on Beatbox, which I couldn't imagine it being called anything else now. But
I don't know if boombox would have worked. Would it?
I don't know. It's too like literal, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. Beatbox just had a little more cachet. It was fun, and it rolls off the tongue well. So yeah, and I don't know. We sued Molson Coors one time. I wouldn't recommend doing that.
No. Wow. Why? What happened?
So we got into the seltzer game in 2018. This was when like White Claw had just come out, and we had just switched to the beer distributors. And they were like, "Wow, this Beatbox thing is really cool for us. It's incremental, it's different." And we were like, "Okay, we can make kind of what they call beyond beer, like not beer products for the beer networks." And so seltzer, we're like, seltzer is going to be massive.
Yeah.
In 2018, 2019, so we created and launched a product. We launched it in kind of like late 2019 called Brizzy. It was called Brizzy Hard Seltzer, and 4 months later, Molson Coors announces a product called Vizzy Hard Seltzer.
Yep.
And we were the logo looked the same. A lot of it was the same. And we were with a lot of Miller Coors distributors. We're like, what's going on? Vizzy, Brizzy, like that sounds very similar. And there was confusion at the distributor level. They were shipping in the wrong things to the grocery stores. And so we sued them, and then I think we sued them like February 2020.
And then
they were like at the table, and then like a month later COVID hits, and it was like then it dragged on for 2 years. I think we settled for far less than we paid in legal bills. So the lawyers all won in that one.
That's the lawyers always win.
The lawyers always win.
Nobody ever wins this shit. The lawyers always win.
The lawyers always win. Yeah. No. So, but it was a lesson learned. One, about trying to not focus on one thing, and also not to get into a legal dispute with a global behemoth.
With anybody though, it doesn't. I mean, if you can avoid it, avoid it. To be honest, people steal my shit all the time, merch wise. I've got a
million designs.
I stopped trademarking stuff because as soon as it goes on my site, it's on Etsy and Amazon immediately.
Right away.
Because he does the designs for like all of our merch and stuff, and
I'll just make new shit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm better than you. That's why you're copying me. So
we finally have seen now with Beatbox, like we had our own lane for so long. We always used to say we're the leaders of the party punch category, but we were also the only ones in the party punch category, so that was easy to say. But now we've seen some big suppliers come in with Tetra Pak, flavored drinks. Usually it's the wine companies, which is interesting, but because they have the supply chain for this. So they're creating knockoffs, but people want authentic.
Yeah, I saw them. So like in all these states we go into, I'll go and meet with the stores and the GMs and anybody I can while we're there.
Yeah.
And for the first time ever, I saw a couple of your competitors there. Right next to you, and that was the first time I'd ever seen them or heard of them.
Yep.
And I was like, well, success is going to breed.
It happens in every industry, as you've seen in clothes. Apparel is far worse than anything else. The barriers to entry are much lower. But yeah, I think that's what the big companies do. They're not the best at innovating. So when they see something in their data and they're like, oh shit, this is taking share from what we're doing, they're really good at quickly replicating that and then using the muscle of their distribution to get it on shelves very, very quickly. I think like what I like to think, and I think it's true, is that we've reached escape velocity, right? Where we're too far in front and have spent 7 years building authentic community around this brand that all we see when big suppliers are talking to their retail partners, like, hey, there's a market for blue raspberry tetras, and they look at it, well, there's only one other company in it, and we're the leader there. So the buyers come around, and you don't want to have a private label when you could have the brand, the Red Bull. So I think and I keep saying Red Bull, but I'm going to say Ghost going forward.
It's not our advertiser. We're just somebody had sent us a pack in. Ours is First Form on here.
Oh, nice.
And,
Well, we'll drink
diehard First Form fan. But somebody drops a case of that off the other day. But yeah, with that, what's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten?
The best piece of advice I've ever gotten, man, I think it's just be who you are, be yourself. But I think my advice to anybody that's trying to start something that's currently in the grind or struggling with it is, you got to be real with yourself. But if you truly believe in what you're doing and you see that there are areas where it works, and you are passionate about what you're bringing to the world, just find a way. There's always a solution. Don't give up on it. Now, if it's clearly not working and you're wasting money, like, you got to be real with yourself. But like, man, it's so easy to say, like, this is too hard, this is too much, I'm having the worst week of my life. It gets better on the other side when you make it. So just don't stop.
Yeah, I talked about this in the show. I got two that I really enjoyed. One was an investor, and he said, "Look, once you reach a point," he goes, "Do you have a number in life that you're good on?" And I said, yeah. And he goes, "What's that number?" And he goes, "Just think about it in your head. You don't have to tell me out loud." And I go, "Okay." So I thought about the number, and he goes, "You got it?" And I go, "Yeah, I got the number." And he goes, "Don't go above it." So he goes, "If somebody offers you this, and you've been working your ass off and everything else, you got wife, kids, and you have fun doing podcasts every day," and he goes, "Take that number, be happy with it, and don't chase after that."
Yeah.
And he goes, "The people that really struggle in life are the ones that are like, oh man, but I made this, but there's a bigger house, or there's a bigger boat, or a bigger thing."
There will always be, right, someone with a little more.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. And you're seeing it now with the Diddy thing that's going on, in my opinion. Like, I think once he started suing Diageo, that's, it was hey, bro, we got a little more money than you. We're gonna dig into this and see what it's like on the back end. There's always somebody bigger than you.
Yeah, always.
Yeah. Even Cuban the other day was talking about buying Twitter, and he goes, "Well, I'd love to buy Twitter." And Elon kindly reminded him, "Hey, man,
you can't afford Twitter.
Can't afford Twitter."
No.
Like, so there's always somebody bigger, no matter what.
Yeah.
The other one was our buddy from Burbiz.
Scott?
Yep. Love Scott. And we did a gig there. Him and I did a live show at the Redskins field. What's the name of that field?
Fuck, I don't even know.
I don't either.
FedEx Field, I think.
FedEx, that's right. So we're doing it. Games going on in the background, and him and I are doing interviews the whole time. I think we only got to catch like the last 3 minutes of the game because we were doing shows from the suite. And I was asking him about investing and everything else, and he goes, "Look, man, I love you," and he goes, "I believe in you guys and everything else," and he goes, "Selling my company was so fucking hard that," he goes, "I have zero interest to get back in another meeting again, an email, a phone call, whatever," and he's got kids and all that other stuff. And I was like, no shit. Because that's how hard it really is.
Yeah.
Because for you, and I don't know if Beatbox was your only idea, but if your one idea that you've been focused on your entire life doesn't hit, then what do you do?
Yeah, no, you have to be careful not to let it be your whole identity. But I do wonder, like, if we if we sold this company, a piece of you would be, it's like a loss, Oh,
like, yeah.
Like, and a lot of founders have a really hard time. They have all this money, but their passion is like, now with a lot of money, you can probably find other things, but you will never have this again.
Yeah, and we have friends like that. Mm-hmm. One of them was Hunter, and my buddy Chris Hunter, who was on the show a few months back for Koya, who created Four Loko and all that other stuff. And I was like, well, what about afterwards or whatever? And he goes, it's fun, and you take a couple months off, and then you realize you're a young dude. What are you going to do the rest of your life? It's almost like an athlete. Who retires at,
retires early and
35 years old. And you're like, well, shit, what do I do for the next 40, 50 years of my life?
Yep.
And I said, so what happened? And he goes, well, I took a vacation to Italy. I was there for a couple months, wife, kids, and all that stuff. And then 2 months go by, you're bored. You start another company. And that's it. Start another drink. Start another thing.
Yeah, you're not going to lose. Like, I have to be doing something. What it would be, I don't know. But yeah, it's hard to think about life without Beatbox at this point, because it's like so much of my 12 years.
12 years is a long time.
13 years through the ringer. But it's not just me. There's a lot of other people in the room and investors, and
of course, and you got to take care of them. And like, my biggest fear is not letting anybody down. So when we did this,
Same, man.
when we did the We Funder initially, and we did it, I think it was like just under 4 hours. We raised the 1.235 million.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, it's gone, right? Then you look at how many people are there, and I'm looking at it now. It's like 1,600 and change that are people that are invested. Most of them listeners, and I don't want to let them down. Where I take these meetings seriously and all this other shit because it's like, God damn, dude, I don't want to lose money for anybody. Like, thank you for believing in us.
People depart, and people that have a lot of money, people that don't have a lot of money, and they all trust you with their hard-earned money that they have, and it's terrifying, the idea of letting all of them down.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck if it's $80. Like, there's a point that
Yeah, I mean, my former jobs, I had 2 different jobs. Both of my former bosses, invested 50 grand back in 2015, 16 when they were just like, you know what, I must have been a decent employee. Like, it was like, and like, yeah, like it could have gone terribly. It could have been like, man, I'm so sorry, guys. And use like that making that phone call you just don't want to make.
Yep.
Now it's a great phone call. It's like, hey, look what we're doing now. Did great for you. But no, for sure. I think as any founder, when you take other people's money, there is a pressure there. And I don't know.
There is, and I've been on the other side of it too, because I did movies for years and years and years. And you're raising funding for these movies, and then one didn't do well. And you got to call these people and say, "Hey, you're not getting your money back."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Well, what the fuck do you mean?" And I'm like,
say that again.
Well, the movie didn't do well, and I was like, "I can't predict this, And if I could, they would all be hits." You had a formula that most things were working, and then this one didn't do well, and I remember sitting on those calls, and then one person just kept calling over and over again. I was like, "Oh my God, dude! Like,
what do you want me to tell you? I can only tell you so many times."
But they were like, "No, but you could do it." And I was like, "No, the movie came out, and that's it. It's dead."
Yeah.
Like, I apologize, and fuck, dude, I felt awful.
Well, where are you with Hard AF Seltzer? I mean, you guys are getting going. What's the next for you guys?
So we're getting going. We're in as of the end of next month. We'll be in 12 states. It's interesting. You look at the seltzer market, for example, and Dan, you can speak on the coffee here in a second, but with seltzer, we got in, people were like, "Oh, that market's saturated." And it was like, well, no market is really saturated. Good branding and something that tastes good will always cut through the marketplace no matter what.
Like, commodities have been commodities since the beginning of time.
Yeah, and seltzer, everyone's like, "Oh, seltzer's a bubble." I'm like, it still does $3 billion in retail sales.
It's definitely not a bubble. That's silly.
That was back in 2020, 2021,
Yes.
2022.
It had bubbles. It had bubbles.
Exactly.
Well, and then you saw thousands, and then it washed out. And now it's like, okay, who are some real brands that can enter into this?
Well, that's how it works, man. I mean, there's always shakeups in market, whether it's economic modalities changing or creative destruction or anything like that. But good product and branding will always persist, right? Sometimes you just got to wait, and I think it's an interesting thing for the consumer. You talked about coffee earlier, right? Coffee got popular in the 90s in the Pacific Northwest for some fucking reason. I don't know why there's not an Italian that lives anywhere near that fucking place. Right? But coffee got super popular up there. And then you started to see like it wasn't just Starbucks. There were a bunch of companies that started in the 1990s. There were coffee companies. And coffee is one of, it's an old commodity since what, the 1000, I think, is when it was discovered in Yemen or some shit like that. It was a long time ago. But, or something like that. I don't remember the exact date. Maybe it was the 7th century, actually. But it's been a commodity in America since our founding, basically, right? Like, we went from tea to coffee pretty quick. And still, there are new companies that pop up all the time that are successful in that market, right? Like, one of the difficult things to do, and I'm sure you guys experience this, is build a market for something that doesn't already exist, right? You're a product. Being a category of one is a good thing if you're already popular, right? But if you're starting out as like, hey, I got this new thing, and people are like, that's not part of my life. Like, you have to connect with people branding wise to open up that part of their life. Like, here, this is something that you need. Here's why. And your value proposition is multiple layers. Whereas if you make coffee, it's like, it's good coffee. Taste it and see. You'll either like it or you don't. And it was like 63% of Americans drink at least one cup of coffee a week.
And man, for me, like
that's a bigger total addressable market than any other non-food category.
Oh, it's insane.
yeah, and you take me for example. Like I'm probably the best example of this. Is I don't like coffee. I don't like the taste of it, but I can't get up and start my day without it. Therefore, if I'm going to buy it, I'm going to buy it from a brand I believe in, and it was Black Rifle Coffee, and those were my best friends. We were on the show and created it. It was in Evan's bathtub and all this other stuff because it is about the branding. It is about the community.
Yeah, it's community.
And I don't
building,
care
right?
which coffee I drink, but I want to support somebody I believe in and that I love, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with Hard AF Seltzer, where you look at the market and you're like, all right, cool. I think the seltzers will wash out if you make something great that tastes good, and it's about the community, and then it's an 8%, which is, essentially double everything else on the market, and treat it like a craft beer, which is where the category needs to go, rather than a Sunny D or some of the other one, the quick cash grabs like a Sonic or something like that. Then you can break through the marketplace, and there's hope at the end of it. Because right now, it's not seltzer. It'll move on to something else quickly. Right now it's tea. So when I go to these markets, everybody wants a fucking hard tea.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
A lot of them. And I had yours last night over here, and it was incredible.
Yeah.
So you got the lemonade in there and all that other stuff, and but it's different.
Yeah, I think
It's not like a twisted tea or something like that.
Yeah, I mean ours is the product itself, right? It's 11% higher ABV. It's wine. It's a wine base, although we do have a malt base. It's the number one thing customers care about the most in any segment is taste. It has to taste good, and so we are hyper focused on taste. And then after that, in alcohol, it's taste, it's price, and it's ABV. And if you can and then it's the brand experience. What does this brand mean to me? And so if you can, but the basics of anything: taste, price, ABV, right? And then the brand can win you over the top. But for us, non-carbonated, resealable, great nostalgic flavors that when you taste it, you're like, I know exactly what that's supposed to taste like our blue raspberry. It's like that blue Otter Pop you had growing up. The fruit punch is like that 2-liter bottle of Hawaiian Punch that you had as a kid. We have our brand new orange that tastes like the orange McDonald's High C. So like flavors that
So I haven't had them. I drink it live on air here.
That's nice. Did you chill it down?
I did. I chilled it down. I chilled all your products are
Love
back
it.
in the
Yeah, the
fridge
orange one's
here.
brand new. It's fucking delicious. Actually, I take that. You can freeze all these, and I put it in a blender with some Torani vanilla syrup, and it was like a creamsicle blended up. It was.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, and I think, creating a new category that didn't, it makes it very challenging because retailers don't understand it. They still don't understand it, why, people want it so much. But
yeah, they don't understand us either. Like talking to distributors, like we've got a podcast. It's got a lot of people.
I get a jillion listeners.
They're like, so you do a little show from home, huh? I'm like, no,
yeah.
we can send a couple thousand people out here if you'd like.
yeah.
We can
Literally
sell at
tomorrow.
your stores tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's what, like, Michigan just opened.
yeah,
and
you guys have a great setup here.
Right, and they ordered.
But trying to explain that to 55-year-old Joe at the distributor, he's like, "Oh, what the hell? What is that? What the hell's a podcast?"
I heard TikTok's popular.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
for sure. Like, it's hard. These buyers don't get it, but they all want the next generation of consumers.
They say they do, and then
but
like take Michigan. We just opened up in Michigan, so we got the university and all that stuff. So they ordered 300 cases for everybody at home. That's 612 packs, and got the. I said, look, just send me the list of stores. I'll read them on air, and boom, they're gone in 48 hours. So gone. And how did this happen? I was like, remember that conversation we had 6 months ago, where so we had this little podcast, that you didn't understand. I was like, that's how it happened.
That's how it happened.
And
But then you take that win and you go to the next one, right? It's about finding
Correct.
those little. And Tito, who's a mentor of ours and early, just an advisor and an amazing guy, gave us so much great advice. One of it was, and maybe I should have used some of his quotes in my "Who Gave Me the Best Advice," but he's like, you start little fires, right? You start a fire here, you start a fire over there, and then all of a sudden you start a fire here, and you say, "Holy shit, that one's really going," and you go, "Okay, let's fan that flame and move everything there." And we asked him too, like, what do we do when competition comes in? Talking about that, and he says, you rip off the rearview mirror and you step on the fucking gas. so that was that. But I think you talked about like how connected we're so connected as millennials, Gen Z. We're more connected than ever before. But we're also like more alone. A lot of people just feel alone than more than ever. They're on social media. But they feel alone. And I think having a product that makes people feel a part of something bigger and brings people together, like that's when you can really build that passionate fan base. And for us, like it's all about empowering the different communities. And like, for example, we have a Discord channel which is really rare with alcohol companies, but we have over 10,000 people in it. And it's like a self-running. We have 2 community managers that are running like that, our Facebook family, or all sorts of things. And they've set up channels of like their pets, and there's a mental health channel, and there's like Beatbox channel, and then there's a festival channel. And so you'll see people say like, hey, I'm going to Lost Lands, which is going on this weekend in Columbus, Ohio. And we'll sell like 10,000 cases there this weekend, right? And so, but they'll say, I'm going to Lost Lands. And someone will also say, oh, I'm going to Lost Lands. Now, these people have never met before in real life, but they're both going. And because of the Beatbox community, they have flags, and we're doing a meet and greet and meetups, and they get to, and then you'll see them, whether it's on Twitter or on Instagram, they're like, I just met my new best friend that I didn't even know existed before. And if you like, big companies can't buy that.
No, that's been the key to all of our success, actually.
Yeah.
From Black Rifle to this show to Hard AF now, it's always been the same thing. It's like, and it's funny, it just happened to me 2 days ago. A friend of mine is moving, and I just put a message. We have private Facebook groups in like 200 different cities and bigger ones.
800 subgroups total.
Yeah. Oh, it's incredible. And you're empowering them to be a part of it.
Yeah, one of my friends moving, and I'm like, just make a post, and somebody's there helping her now, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
isn't that cool?
And then
awesome.
we get stories all the time from people like fucking, they'll post in the group, hey, I'm broke down on the side of the road here. Can you come fucking help
He's
me
from
out?
Germany. That's serious.
Yeah, but that's when the brand becomes bigger than just seltzer in a can or party punch in a box. Anybody can do that.
Well, that's the thing. It didn't matter what we decided to sell, right? So that's why we focus on making it the best.
You make it taste great.
Yes. Make everything. Doesn't matter if it's an energy bar or a seltzer, whatever it is.
But that taste great thing is a spectrum too, right? Because there's a lot. I think in the early days, you only got to hit one thing. Like there's the taste and then there's the aftertaste. That's a big problem in alcoholic beverages,
with malts,
right?
With malt, you have to find the right malt base for sure.
Yeah, because if you use with artificial flavoring and stuff like that, which we're all natural flavoring for us, but even with all natural flavoring, if you use the wrong mixture or anything, you're gonna get some weird aftertaste or something like that, and people will tolerate that for a couple maybe. Yeah. Right, but it's I feel like you got to get out of that as soon as possible, like a full spectrum of good taste and booze, and that's why all the other 8% keep going away. Because they taste like shit.
It tastes terrible.
Yeah, there's a few that try. Yeah,
Surge is terrible. Yeah, Bud Light didn't have a good.
No, now Molson Coors next year, their whole strategy is taking their brands like Blue Moon and Topo Chico and making them 8%. So you guys were onto something clear.
Well,
we all were.
And they all, a lot of people have copied too. Like, because we had original flavors, and then all of a sudden, White Claw starts doing those flavors, and you're like, hey man, where'd you get that from?
Yeah. It happens.
It does. It does.
But you continue doing what you're doing and building the community, and there is no one single thing that you'll do that'll be like that was the thing that took us to the top. But it's just small wins, relentless effort, compounded over for us 12 years, and making the right decision and not making the final wrong decision because you can't and that's allowed us to do what we do today. So
it's awesome. Last question for you here. What's the future of Beatbox?
Well, we are growing like crazy. As I said, we're in 110,000 accounts across the country.
God damn, we're in like 3,000. That feels like a lot.
Yeah, no, I mean we added over 40,000 accounts this year and 30,000 last year. So we were in 25, 30,000 2-3 years ago.
Wow.
So for us, we had our first ever distributor conference where we brought out all of our wholesalers. Hosted them with our whole team. We had the owner of the Savannah Bananas there, which, by the way, that guy is incredible.
Shit, yes, we met with him maybe a month and a half
Jesse
ago.
Jesse Cole, dude, his story.
Isn't he friends with Sarah or some shit?
Sarah, and then also we have a sports agent who does this for us, and he goes, "Hey, dude, what about the Savannah Bananas?" I was like, "Yeah, that'd be fucking great."
He did a keynote. It was so amazing, and then we had Dirk Spanley do a show. So like what we talked about is we believe the future of alcohol is flavor. We think we're the Gatorade generation. We grew up on energy drinks. It's driven by millennials. It's driven by Gen Z. It's driven by Hispanic Latino. There is such a tailwind for flavor, and we believe we are the leaders in flavor. And so for us, it's this concept of a flavor wall and building that at retail where you can't think of us as a traditional beer where you put 2 SKUs on the shelf and you're done. Some people love blue raspberry. Some people love lemonade iced tea. Some people love orange. Some people love pink lemonade. So you have to have variety. So we're really focused on that next year of like, how do we go from an average of 5 flavors per account to 8, 9 and build these full shelves? We also have the multi-packs, the 6-packs, which are brand new for us this year.
Yeah, and you also got the special
Yeah,
ones here. These are dope,
we
dude.
did a Blue Raz Fruit Punch, our top 2, with a brand new cherry limeade flavor that you could only get in the variety pack. The cherry limeade like took off, so now we're doing that as a single. But the variety packs are a different occasion, right? It's like a third of our customers, they work their ass off during the day. They want to go home and watch SportsCenter, play video games, and they're unwinding with a Beatbox. You can have some, you can close it up, put it back. That's a third. But there also it's a big part of people's pre-games. It's a big part of people's tailgates. But like you see people walking out of a store, it's hard to carry 10 Beatboxes. 10
individual Beatboxes.
Yeah, and they do, but like it's way easier to pick up 2 6-packs. So that's a big push for us. We're just now getting into like Walmart and Kroger and Target. So we're not even in some of the biggest retail. We're not in Costco. So like
I saw you at HEB up the street.
HEB was our very first grocery retailer in 2014. They're like, this is cool. You guys are local. We want to support. It was amazing. They're an incredible organization.
They are. We're in every single HEB in the state.
If you give love to them and you're local here, they will give you a ton of love back. They've been great. So it's just more accounts, more flavors. International, we're launching the Caribbean, which is super cool.
Holy shit.
In Q4. And we're looking at other opportunities internationally. Of course, like we don't want to, you got to be measured because you have so much runway in the U.S. So you're like, we don't want to distract ourselves, but that's on the horizon. And then, we're just going to keep riding this rocket ship and we'll be just fine. So.
That's awesome. Well, now's the point in the show. We get to the Drinkin' Bro of the Week, which is someone who has inspired you or helped you become the person you are today. Who would you like to give the Drinkin' Bro of the Week to?
It's my dad, tried and true. So he is amazing. Got fired from his job when I was like 10, was doing a side hustle at the time. Diverting clothing to club stores, went all in, took a home loan out at our house in Van Nuys, and over the last 35 years has built it to this incredible logistics company. Watching him as a kid do what he did and just the advice, I'm so grateful he's still around. I call him all the time. Has helped me with so many things, personal and business wise. Without my dad, I don't know that Beatbox gets to where it is. So
that's awesome. A lot of people come on the show and thank their dad, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's my mom's birthday today. It's September 20th. So it's her 70th birthday. So I'm going to give her a shout out.
My mom's on the 22nd. All right. I'll give my mom a shout out too. Mom.
I don't know if she's a drinking bro, but a drinking mom.
Broette. Yeah,
Broette. There we go.
There you go. Well, Justin, congratulations on the success. Really appreciate the time today. Glad your wife is pregnant.
Yeah.
So that way you had some time.
Due date in 10 days, September 30. So I'll be a father the next time we see you.
It's nice. Is that your first one?
First one, baby girl.
Oh, it's the best.
Baby girl.
It's the best. I got 2 boys and a girl, and couldn't imagine life without the girl.
Yeah.
For real. It's a totally different.
All my buddies that are girl dads are just, and Brad, my co-founder, just had a baby girl 2 months ago. They're like, man, there's nothing better than being a girl dad. So.
I 100% agree. It's great. Not that my 2 boys aren't great.
Yeah. You love your boys too.
But they're beating the shit out of each other, and I'm like, holy
there's
cow,
that power dynamic of a boy versus their dad, man. It's like,
and I just watch them bash each other into the ground, and I'm like, holy Christ!
Yeah.
My daughter doesn't do any of that. So I'm like,
Wait,
all right, great.
whoa!
Oh, that's true.
Your daughter's a fucking psycho.
Well, you saw it at your house. She picked up an 8-ball, not a cocaine, but off the pool table.
A pool table 8-ball.
And then rifled it at one of the brothers. Yeah. So, yeah. We'll see. We'll see how she turns out. As for now, she's okay. Thank you, Justin. We appreciate you being here. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Go to iTunes, rate the show a 5-star, and leave a quick review. Also, head on over to Spotify. It's just a 5-star, and you can walk away. If you're out and about here this weekend, want to buy some Beatbox, maybe grab a 12-pack of Hard AF Seltzer, do so. Thank you, Justin. For D'Anthony Holloway, I'm Ross Patterson. This is the Drinkin' Bros Podcast. Good night, everyone.